I am the true daughter of the Marquis Manor who was lost for 40 years. When the Marquis Manor found me, I already had 3 children. On the day I returned to the manor, my father warned me, "You grew up in the countryside and don't know the rules. To outsiders, I will announce that you are the adopted daughter of the Marquis Manor. As for that crude villager husband and wild children of yours, you must never let them show their faces, lest they disgrace the Marquis Manor." My older brother also stood protectively in front of the fake daughter. "I only have one sister, Ying. Don't even think about competing with her for favor." I looked at them in confusion. A crude villager husband? Are you referring to my husband, the Chancellor, who is second only to one and above tens of thousands? And wild children? Are you referring to my daughter who is the Empress? Or my eldest son who was made the Grand General who pacifies the nation? Or perhaps my youngest son who just passed the Imperial exam as the top scholar? On the day I was brought back by the Marquis Manor steward, I finally met my biological father, the Marquis of Dingyuan, Lin Jingde. He sat in the seat of honor, holding a teacup, his gaze sweeping over me critically, as if he were inspecting an old object dug up from some forgotten corner. "Shuyu, you've suffered, having been lost for 40 years. Your mother has gone to the temple to pray for blessings. She will come to see you when she returns later." He took a sip of tea, his tone flat, without a hint of excitement from a long-awaited reunion. I didn't say anything, he didn't seem to care either, and continued speaking on his own. Ying grew up in the mansion since she was a child, and now she is the vice minister's wife. She is well-read and sensible, and has long been the face of the Marquis Manor. Now that you've returned, it's inevitable she's uneasy in her heart, for the peace of the Marquis Manor, and for the harmony between you two sisters. To the public, she will still be the legitimate daughter of the Marquis Manor. He paused for a moment. As for you, you'll be registered under mother's name as an adopted daughter. That can be considered as fulfilling the bond we share as father and daughter. I looked at him calmly. At my age, I wasn't unable to understand the meaning behind his words. This was him looking down on me, admonishing me, and also establishing authority for the fake young lady, Lin Ying. And then there was my biological mother, whom I had never met, who could even arrange to be away when I returned home. Clearly, she didn't really want to see me. I faintly averted my gaze and nodded. Okay. Lin Jingde probably didn't expect me to agree so readily, and the whole bellyful of excuses he had prepared got stuck in his throat. But my elder brother Lin Yin, standing by his side, couldn't hold back. He took a long stride forward, pointed at me, and said sternly, "Don't think that just because you agreed so readily, you have good intentions. I'm telling you, Sister Ying is kind-hearted. To find you all these years, who knows how much she has suffered praying to gods and Buddhas. Now that you're back, you're not allowed to bully her." I looked at this brother of mine by blood, his eyes filled with heartache and protectiveness for another sister, while for me, there was only wariness and hostility. "Oh," I responded. This probably completely ignited their anger. Lin Jingde slammed the teacup heavily on the table, making a dull thump sound, and his eyes grew cold. "There is one more thing you must agree to. That husband's family of yours from the countryside of boorish and crude country bumpkin, and those few wild children, don't bring them to the manor. The Marquis Manor is a family of noble lineage. We can't afford this disgrace." When he spoke, the disgust in his eyes was almost overflowing. I finally raised my eyes, looked at him directly, and spoke slowly. "The Marquis is right. A country bumpkin is crude, and wild children are unruly. They are indeed not presentable." It was my lack of consideration. I saw a flash of contempt in Lin Jingde's eyes, and my brother, Lin Yin, made no effort to hide his disdain, the corner of his mouth curling into a mocking smile. In their eyes, this submissiveness of mine was nothing more than clear proof of a country woman clinging to the powerful, willing to abandon everything for wealth and glory. They were very satisfied with my sensibleness. Lin Jingde waved his hand, as if dismissing an unimportant servant. "All right, you may leave now. Have the butler prepare a more secluded courtyard for you to stay in. Your mother will come see you later." I turned around, without the slightest reluctance to leave. Just as I walked out of the study, I ran right into that fake young lady who had occupied my life for 40 years. Lin Ying. She was dressed in fine silks, adorned with pearls and jade, and she rushed forward to grab my hands, her eyes red-rimmed and full of concern. "Sister, don't blame father and older brother. They're only doing this for the sake of the Marquis Manor's reputation. You've just come back, so there are many rules to learn. I'll help you." She put on an act of deep sisterly affection, as if she were more upset about the injustice I suffered than I was. I pulled my hand away and said nothing. She didn't seem embarrassed at all, and gently added, "Oh, right, sister, in a few days, It will be father's 60th birthday. The powerful and noble of the capital will all be gathered then, so we absolutely cannot let anything go wrong. She leaned in closer, lowering her voice, but her tone was filled with mockery. Don't you worry, sister. I'll prepare a decent set of clothes for you that day, but it's probably best if you don't talk much then, so you don't embarrass the Marquis Manor. I looked up, glanced at her smug expression, and smiled. Only the Lin family members were blind enough not to see through Lin Yingying's hypocrisy. When the butler led me to the most remote courtyard of the Marquis Manor, I didn't even glance at the weeds in the yard or the cobwebs in the corners. Anyway, I won't be staying for long. It's quiet here, which suits me just fine. I had just sat down when Lin Yingying arrived with 2 maids. She was holding a pile of her old hand-me-downs, along with a few pieces of dull, cheap jewelry, putting on a show of being incredibly thoughtful. Sister, you just came back from the countryside. I'm afraid you aren't used to the manor's brocades. These are some I picked out. The fabric is softer. You can wear them first to get used to it. She placed the items on the table, her tone filled with an unconcealable sense of superiority. This jewelry isn't anything valuable, but it's considered presentable outside. Don't look down on it. She expected to see me looking overwhelmed by the favor, or perhaps feeling inferior and ashamed. I just calmly picked up a piece of clothing, shook off the dust, and folded it. Thank you, younger sister. My reaction made her pause for a moment. Then that bit of wariness completely dissipated, turning into a knowing contempt. In her eyes, I was just a country bumpkin who had never seen the world, who should be grateful for any scraps. She smiled with satisfaction, feeling that she had me firmly under her heel. As long as you like it, sister. I won't disturb your rest then. Lin Yingying had just left, and the Marchioness of Dingyuan, my biological mother, arrived right after. She gave me a perfunctory look. You've suffered during your time in the countryside. Behind her followed 2 imposing maidservants, their gazes on me like they were looking at a piece of merchandise waiting to be appraised, cold and distant. In 3 days, it will be the old matriarch's 80th birthday banquet. People from all the manors in the capital will be there. My mother then got straight to the point, her tone devoid of any warmth. Your father has already decided. He will introduce you to everyone at the banquet as an adopted daughter. This is your good fortune. You must know to cherish it. I nodded, not saying a word. She seemed very satisfied with my obedience, and gave a look to the maidservants behind her. One of the maidservants immediately stepped forward and threw a package onto the table. This is for you. Wear this on the day of the banquet, she ordered condescendingly. Her tone wasn't a suggestion, it was a command. The package opened to reveal a dress. The color was a kind of old-fashioned dark ochre, and the style was at least 10 years old. The fabric was also very coarse. At a glance, you could tell it was something that even the lower-class servant women in the manor might not wear. As a daughter of the Marquis Manor, even an adopted one, your every word and action represents the face of the Marquis Manor. And that piece of junk on your hand, remember to take it off on the day of the banquet. This thing isn't presentable. She glanced at the bracelet on my hand with disgust and warned. That day, there will be many people and a lot of gossip. You'd better behave yourself and talk less, lest you make a fool of yourself and embarrass the entire Marquis Manor along with you. After saying that, she turned and left with her people, as if staying an extra second would dirty her shoes. I looked at the bracelet on my wrist. It was a jade bracelet, emerald green all over, with excellent translucency. The Dingyuan Marquis Manor thought this bracelet was a worthless trinket picked up from the countryside, but they didn't know that this single bracelet alone was enough to buy 10 Dingyuan Marquis Manors. I casually tossed that unsightly dress back onto the table, the corner of my mouth curling into a smirk that no one noticed. The old matriarch's birthday banquet. It's about time I let my 3 children come over and liven things up. For the old matriarch's birthday banquet, everyone in the Dingyuan Marquis Manor was busy to the point of going mad. The Sunset Glow Court where I lived was the only quiet place, because no one remembered that someone still lived here. Finding myself with plenty of leisure time, I sought out the unfamiliar young servant who had helped me move my luggage and stuffed a hefty silver ingot into his hand. The young servant's eyes went wide, and he stammered as he asked what my instructions were. Help me deliver a letter home. I returned to my room, spread a piece of rough straw paper on the dust-covered table, and picked up the brush to write just 4 words. I am well, don't worry. No signature, no closing. I folded the letter, put it into a very ordinary envelope, and gave it to the young servant, telling him only to deliver it to the Tongfuji General Store in the south of the city and hand it to the shopkeeper. The young servant took the silver and the letter, and went off cheerfully. After finishing all this, I had absolutely nothing left to do. I moved a chair to sit in the courtyard, looking at the few weeds in the corner of the wall that grew stubbornly despite being untended, and found it very interesting. Lin Ying would occasionally pass by my courtyard out of kindness, glance at me from beyond the gate with a look of both pity and triumph, then shake her head, sigh, and leave. She probably thought that I had been blinded by this overwhelming fortune, yet was suffering greatly from being unable to fit in, and could only wallow in self-pity in this rundown courtyard. In her eyes, I was pitiful and pathetic. Unfortunately, she didn't understand. I wasn't wallowing in self-pity, I was just waiting. The letter has been sent out, and the person I'm waiting for will be here soon. At night, I had a dream. In the dream, I returned to that small courtyard in the countryside. My husband is sitting under the lamp reading. My eldest daughter is pounding my back. My eldest son is in the courtyard wiping his long spear. And even my youngest son, who usually doesn't like to move, is helping me sort through the seeds for medicine. The whole family, so happy and harmonious. I suddenly opened my eyes. The moonlight outside the window was cold and clear. I suddenly realized, I missed them a little. I wonder if they've received my letter. Very soon. It was the day of the birthday banquet. I was seated in the most inconspicuous corner. On the table was only a plate of damp peanuts and a pot of completely cold tea. Lin Ying, wearing an incomparably luxurious cloud brocade dress, bustled through the crowd, enjoying everyone's adulation and praise. Her laughter was crisp and pleasant, and every glance she gave carried the perfect amount of reserve and nobility. After 3 rounds of drinks, Marquis Dingyuan Lin Jingde stood up, holding his wine cup, his face flushed and beaming, and cleared his throat. The entire hall instantly fell silent. He first gave a speech with pleasantries, thanking everyone for coming, and then, his gaze landed on my corner as if by chance. Today, there is one more matter I must announce to everyone. His voice was loud and clear, carrying a tone of bestowing a great favor. This here, is the adopted daughter of my Marquis Manor, Lin Shuyu. The moment the words adopted daughter came out, the whole room was in an uproar. I can hear the noble ladies at the next table whispering, so she's an adopted daughter. I knew it. How could the legitimate daughter of the Marquis Manor be dressed like a village woman? Shoo, quiet down. She was acknowledged by the Marquis after all. We should give the Marquis Manor some face. Lin Ying stood beside the Marchioness, the corners of her mouth curling into a barely perceptible, smug smile, her eyes filled with silent mockery towards me. I picked up my teacup and took a gentle sip. The tea was bitter, but it cleared the mind. Lin Jingde seemed a bit displeased with my unfazed appearance, frowned, and then stopped looking at me. He then turned to introduce Lin Ying, his words filled with pride and affection. Soon, it was time for the part of presenting birthday gifts to the old matriarch. Lin Ying, as the most doted and pearl of the Marquis Manor, was naturally the first. She held a delicate brocade box, taking light, graceful steps, just about to step forward and receive everyone's attention. Just then, a loud, clear voice rang out. Her Majesty the Empress has arrived. Everyone was shocked, but in an instant, led by the Marquis of Dingyuan, all the dignitaries in the hall dropped to their knees, calling out, "Greetings, Your Majesty the Empress. May Your Majesty live a long and prosperous life." I didn't kneel. For one, the table in front of me was too small. I really couldn't manage it. For another, I didn't want to kneel either. In the deathly silence of the entire hall, the lavishly dressed Empress Xianxia, surrounded by palace attendants, walked in without looking to the side. She didn't look at Marquis Dingyuan and Lin Ying, who were kneeling at the very front. Instead, she passed through the densely packed, kneeling crowd, walked straight to the corner where I was, and stopped 3 steps away from me. Then, under everyone's disbelieving gazes, she faced me and performed a deep curtsy. Daughter pays her respects to mother. The entire hall was deathly silent. Lin Jingde's face instantly turned from flushed to deathly pale, his lips trembling, but he couldn't utter a single word, and Lin Ying beside him, her face was ashen, her eyes filled with utter disbelief. Xianxia paid them no mind. She walked forward and intimately supported me. She whispered in my ear in a voice only we could hear, "Mother, you have been wronged." From start to finish, she didn't spare a single glance for Marquis Dingyuan and Lin Ying kneeling on the ground. I patted her hand, signaling that I was fine. Only then did she turn her head and speak faintly, "Everyone, rise." Only then did the crowd, as if granted a great pardon, shakily stand up, but no one dared to sit down again. They all stood with their heads bowed, not even daring to breathe loudly. A head palace maid came forward, holding a huge rosewood tray covered with a bright yellow silk cloth. Xianxia personally stepped forward and unveiled the silk cloth. Hiss! A wave of gasps came from the crowd. On the tray was a natural coral tree, nearly 3 feet tall. entirely blood-red, and shimmering with a flowing luster. On it also hung 12 East Sea luminous pearls the size of pigeon eggs. Its value was probably enough to buy half of the Dingyuan Marquis Manor. Everyone thought this was a birthday gift for the old matriarch. Lin Jingde took half a step forward, just about to open his mouth to express his gratitude. However, Shen Weiner didn't even look at him, but instead personally brought this coral tree before me. Mother, she smiled radiantly, as well-behaved as she always was at home. This is a birthday gift for you from my daughter. On behalf of His Majesty and myself, I know you do not like extravagance, but this item symbolizes blessings and longevity. I hope you will not dislike it. As soon as these words were spoken, the entire hall once again fell into a dead silence. A birthday gift for me. Then what does that make this grand birthday banquet that the Marquis Manor is holding for the old matriarch today? But the more fatal blow was yet to come. Shen Weiner turned slightly to the side, facing the old matriarch behind me, and added in a clear voice, and also, to wish my maternal grandmother a happy birthday along the way. Maternal grandmother. If I am the Empress mother, then my mother is, naturally, the Empress maternal grandmother. And just like that, all the clues came together. Those guests who had just been mocking me as a village woman and an adopted daughter, their faces all turned pale at this moment. The noble woman who had earlier said I reeked of poverty was so frightened that she couldn't hold her teacup steady, and it fell to the ground with a crash, shattering into a million pieces. Lin Jingde's body swayed, and he could barely stand steady. Just then, from outside the manor gate, another announcement was heard. The Grand General who pacifies the nation has arrived. Before the voice had even faded, a tall figure clad in heavy black iron armor strode in with great urgency. The murderous aura of battle and war rushed in instantly, and the guests couldn't help but shrink back, clearing a path for him. I saw my good father, Marquis Dingyuan. Lin Jingde subconsciously straightened his back, as if trying to put on the dignified air of a marquis. However, that figure walked straight past him, without even sparing him a glance from the corner of his eye. Under everyone's gaze, he walked up to me and then knelt on one knee. Your son, Shen Kai, pays his respects to mother. With a boom, Lin Jingde's body jolted violently. He stared at the Qilin insignia on Shen Kai's shoulder that symbolized his status as the general who guards the nation. His mouth opened and closed and opened again, yet he couldn't utter a single complete word. He never expected that the general who guards the nation would also be my son. Before everyone could recover from this second shock, another announcement came from outside the manor gate. The new top scholar, Shen Yu, has arrived. Following that, a figure in azure robes walked in briskly. He had a handsome face and a gentle temperament like jade. He was precisely that Shen Yu who shot to fame at the Qionglin banquet and was hailed as the #1 scholar of the capital city. He too faced me, stopping 3 steps away, straightened his clothes and hat, and then bowed deeply, a long bow that reached the ground. Your son, Shen Yu, pays his respects to mother. Everyone stared with wide eyes. Empress, General, top scholar, my 3 children, who were mocked by Lin Yan as wild children raised by country bumpkins, were standing right here at this moment. 1. The mother of the nation. 1. Holding great military power. 1. Renowned throughout the scholarly world. They are the pillars of the state, and even more so, my pride. Behind me, Lin Ying could no longer hold herself up. Her eyes rolled back, and she fainted stiffly. A flurry of activity immediately broke out around her, yet no one dared to make a loud noise again. And my dear father, with a thud, his knees went weak, and he just collapsed and knelt on the ground. He looked up, gazing at me, with nothing but endless regret in his eyes. My mother also knelt on the ground, looking at me with teary eyes. I didn't look at them again, nor did I pay any attention to the trembling guests around. I just turned around, looked at the 3 children beside me, and gave my first genuine smile since returning to this Marquis Manor. Let's go, I said softly. We're going home. Just then, a steady and magnetic voice came from the manor gate, unhurried, yet it clearly reached everyone's ears. The Marquis Manor is certainly lively today. The civil and military officials, who were still immersed in shock, turned around in unison after hearing the voice and bowed deeply towards the entrance. Greetings, Lord Prime Minister. Amidst the crowd's extremely respectful gazes, a figure slowly walked in. He was dressed in an ordinary ink-black brocade robe, not in his official attire, yet he possessed a natural air of authority. Of course I recognized the newcomer. After all, he was the husband I had shared a bed with for nearly 40 years, and also the one the Lin family called a country bumpkin time and again. The current Prime Minister, Shen Xizhou. Without looking to the side, he walked through the crowd of bowing officials and came straight towards me. On that face I've looked at for decades. There was now a trace of a gentle smile that I knew, one that belonged only to me. He came to my side, very naturally took my hand, and gently caressed the back of my hand with the pad of his thumb, as if to comfort me. Then, he finally turned his gaze to the ashen-faced man on the ground. His voice was still gentle, even carrying a hint of the respected junior shows an elder, but to everyone's ears, it was more bone-chilling than the ice and snow of the dead of winter. Father-in-law. He chuckled lightly and began to speak slowly. Now that you've found Shuyu, why didn't you send someone to my residence to let me know? He paused, his gaze sweeping over my 3 equally composed children, and the curve of his lips deepened. Suzhou could have also prepared a generous gift to celebrate together. Father-in-law. Shen Suzhou called out again, his tone now carrying a hint of playful coldness, and he leaned down slightly. What's wrong? Could it be that you are so overjoyed to see our family that you're too excited to stand up? Lin Jingde's lips trembled, unable to utter a single word. He finally raised his head, and his gaze towards me was filled with a barely perceptible plea. Unfortunately, it was too late. I couldn't even be bothered to meet his gaze again, and just said lightly to Shen Suzhou beside me, let's go home. Okay. Shen Suzhou immediately withdrew his gaze. He held my hand, and with his other arm around my shoulder, he protected me as we walked outside. Weiner, Shen Kai, and Xinyu followed closely behind. Behind us, there was a deathly silence. After our family left, a real drama truly began at the Dingyuan Marquis Manor. This is what I heard later. The guests fled the Marquis Manor as if avoiding a snake or a scorpion, at a speed never seen before, afraid of being even slightly associated with this mess. Those allies who usually called Lin Jingde brother didn't even spare him a glance, leaving faster than anyone else, and his political enemies exchanged knowing, excited glances in the crowd. After all the outsiders had gone, it said that Lin Jingde was like a crazed lion. He slapped my high and mighty birth mother to the ground, pointed at her nose and cursed her out, scolding her for being blind and for nurturing a viper in her bosom. Then, his bloodshot eyes turned to Lin Yingying. Lin Yingying was already pale with fright, kneeling on the ground and trembling. She had probably never seen Lin Jingde in such a discomposed state. And you? Lin Jingde kicked over the chair beside her. It's you. It's all because of you. You jinx. If you hadn't been badmouthing that village woman in our ears day after day, how would the Marquis Manor have ended up like this? Speak up. The Marchioness covered her face and wept, while Lin Yingying just kept kowtowing and begging for mercy. Amidst this chaos, the elder brother, Lin Yin, who had been silent all this time, slowly walked up to Lin Yingying. He wasn't furious like their father, nor was he weeping like their mother. He just looked down at this little sister he had doted on for 40 years. Yingying. His voice was very soft, yet it made the entire main hall's clamor fall silent. I only have one question for you. Lin Yingying raised her tear-streaked face, seeming to search his face for a trace of past warmth, but all she saw was indifference. Lin Yan crouched down to her eye level and asked, word by word, did you really know nothing at all about everything concerning her? Lin Yan's question made everyone in the Marquis Manor come to a sudden realization. I later heard that when faced with Lin Yan's questioning, Lin Yingying just shook her head frantically, tears streaming down her face, repeating I don't know, and I really don't know anything. Her acting had always been excellent. On a normal day, she might have garnered some sympathy. Unfortunately, my husband was never one to give people a way out. Not long after Lin Yan asked that question, a guard in tight-fitting attire, holding a dossier wrapped in craft paper, walked into the main hall. He placed the dossier on the desk in front of Lin Jingde. Lord Marquis, our Prime Minister says this is a supplementary gift for your birthday banquet. After the guard finished speaking, he turned and left without waiting for Lin Jingde to react, leaving behind a hall full of shocked and uncertain people. With trembling hands, Lin Jingde practically snatched the dossier. He tore open the seal, pulled out the papers inside, and after just one glance, his face, which had been flushed red with rage, instantly turned a deathly pale white. This is impossible, he muttered to himself. As the papers in his hand fluttered to the ground, Lin Yan, who was closest to him, picked them up. What was recorded on it was actually very simple. As early as 20 years ago, Lin Yingying had learned that she was not, in fact, the young lady of the Marquis Manor. She followed the clues and found her biological parents in the degenerate gambler's alley in the south of the city. They were a hopeless pair of a gambler and a lazy woman. Attached in the dossier was a written pledge, on which it was clearly written that Lin Yingying, for the price of 500 taels of silver per year, had bought out their status as her parents, on the condition that they would never step into the capital city for the rest of their lives, much less leak a single word. On it, There were also the bright red thumbprints of her biological parents. So, she knew all along. Not only did she know she was a fake, but she also knew the Marquis Manor was always looking for the real legitimate daughter. While she shamelessly enjoyed everything that should have been mine, she sat back and watched as the Marquis Manor missed the chance to acknowledge me. Time and time again, she wasn't afraid I'd steal her wealth and status. She was afraid her filthy, shameful background would destroy the noble facade she had maintained for 40 years. Wretch, you venomous bitch, Lin Zhang roared. He wasn't angry about Lin Yingying's deception. He was angry at himself for being a poor judge of character, angry that for such a vicious impostor, he had personally pushed away the true bloodline that could have brought supreme glory to the Marquis Manor. Lin Yan was even more thunderstruck. He clutched those few sheets of paper tightly, the veins on the back of his hand bulging. He thought of all his rejections and warnings towards me, of how he had defended this lie-spewing sister, and only felt his face burn hotly, as if he had been slapped dozens of times. All his defense had become a colossal joke. Dad, brother, I was wrong. I was really wrong. Seeing that she was exposed, Lin Yingying completely broke down. She crawled on her knees to grab the hem of Lin Jingde's clothes. Don't kick me out. I don't want to go back to that kind of place. Get lost. Lin Jingde kicked her away, pointed towards the main door, and roared hoarsely at the servants. Throw all of this things out for me. From now on, she and our Dingyuan Marquis Manor will have absolutely no relation. Just as Lin Yingying was crying and shouting don't, and the servants were at a loss, the heavy door of the main hall was once again violently pushed open from the outside. A man and a woman, dressed in rags and covered in mud, were roughly pushed in, falling wretchedly to the ground. The same guard who had delivered the case file earlier had returned. He stood at the doorway, his voice icy, resounding throughout the entire hall. Marquis, my master, the Prime Minister, has instructed that since this is a family matter, it must be settled completely. He pointed a hand at the terrified man and woman on the floor, his gaze turning to the already deathly pale Lin Yingying. Miss Lin's biological parents have been brought to you. I wasn't there, but the farce at the Dingyuan Marquis Manor that day became the top story in all the teahouses in the capital city the very next day. It is said that after Lin Yingying's pair of inveterate gambler parents were brought to the main hall, they immediately hugged her legs and wailed, shouting, "My good daughter, quickly give your dad and mom some silver to spend." That scene was more exciting than any play. Lin Yingying completely lost her mind. In the end, she was tied up by the house servants, and along with her luxurious clothes and jewelry, thrown out of the Marquis Manor's gate, and her husband, the Vice Minister of Revenue, what's more, directly divorced her with a single letter of divorce. That pair of so-called biological parents, after getting the bag of silver thrown by Lin Jingde, dragged their half-mad daughter and disappeared into the streets and alleys of the capital city. I heard that to completely sever ties, Lin Jingde even personally went to the government office to strike Lin Yingying's household registration from the family genealogy and sign a deed of sale for her, thoroughly cutting off any notion she might have of climbing her way back. Xianxia told me all of these subsequent events as bedtime stories. I just listened, without making a single comment. To me, who Lin Yingying was and what became of her, had long since made no difference, until 3 days later. The carriage of the Dingyuan Marquis Manor stopped in front of the Prime Minister's manor. The ones who came were Lin Jingde and Lin Yin. I was trimming flower branches in the courtyard, while Xianxia sat to the side reading a book. When the servant came to report, I didn't even lift my head, only saying flatly, "Not seeing them," but they clearly didn't plan on giving up just like that. Before long, a clamor could be heard from outside the manor gates, followed by Lin Jingde's old and tearful roar, "Shuyu, Dad knows he was wrong. Come out and see your dad." My flower-cutting motion faltered for a moment. Xianxia closed his book and looked towards me, a hint of inquiry in his gaze. I shook my head, signaling that it was nothing. I had the servants let them in. Meeting again. The once high-spirited Marquis Dingyuan seemed to have aged 20 years overnight, with sunken eyes and a haggard face. Lin Yan beside him was even more crestfallen. On that face once full of disdain and wariness towards me, only a deep, unresolvable regret remained. The moment they saw me, Lin Jingde actually dropped to his knees with a thud. "Shuyu, it's Dad who has wronged you. It's Dad who was blind, mistaking a fisheye for a pearl, and letting you suffer." Tears streamed down his old face, and his voice was hoarse. Lin Yan followed right after, dropping to his knees and knocking his forehead heavily against the stone slab, making a dull thud. "Little sister, your big brother was wrong. I'm begging you, please forgive us, and come home with us." Lin Jingde tremblingly took out a piece of paper from his clothes, holding it high above his head. This is that vile spawn's deed of sale. We've already driven her out. The Marquis Manor. The Marquis Manor will forever have only you as the legitimate daughter. Shuyu, come back. I looked at them calmly. Nor did I reach for that deed of sale. I just gently put down the flower shears in my hand, walked to the side of the ever-silent Xianxia, and he naturally reached out his hand and held mine. I could feel the steady and powerful strength coming from his palm. I finally spoke, my voice very soft, yet clear enough for everyone in the courtyard to hear. My home. I've had it since 40 years ago. Lin Jingde and Lin Yan snapped their heads up, their faces filled with shock and confusion. I looked at them, my gaze passing over them to the vast sky outside the Prime Minister's manor. My tone as placid as water. The Dingyuan Marquis Manor, to me, has long since been an unfamiliar courtyard. My real family is the adoptive mother who picked me up from the roadside on a winter day with heavy snow. It's this man who has weathered the storms with me for 40 years. It's the 3 children I raised with my own hands, who are now pillars of the nation. They are my entire life. I went back to the Dingyuan Marquis Manor just to see what my biological parents looked like. Now that I've completely given up hope. I turned around, no longer looking at the 2 people kneeling on the ground, and said softly to Xianxia beside me, the sun's getting a bit strong. Let's go back inside. Xianxia smiled, tightened his grip on my hand, and walked with me shoulder to shoulder towards the inner hall. Behind me were Lin Jingde heart-wrenching cries and pleas, but those voices could no longer disturb my heart in the slightest. The sunlight was just right, passing through the window lattice, falling on my and Xianxia's clasped hands, warm and peaceful.